LCSC students of online medieval history. Professor Martin here. And what I want to do with this video is I'm just going to send it out over the announcements and do a little bit of reorganizing, updates, making sure we're on the same page. And then when I finish this, I'll shoot the video setting next week's stuff up. So, just as a reminder, here we are at the beginning of week 5, and you guys have a discussion this week, and your annotated bibliographies due at the end of this week. So let's talk about that for just a second. I've talked about them in the setup for the week. I'm not really going to get into it here other than here it is. This is the project. The intention is that the reading load has been fairly light. The workload has been fairly light because there are fairly high expectations for what I'm going to see in this. If you are unclear about how to proceed, make sure you watch the videos that I've been shooting. Drop by office hours, although we're getting pretty close, right? And but the other thing is there's the annotated bibliographies right here. Just fire these up. And sometimes this stuff just like spin wheels forever. You can usually just download it. But this will give you a good idea of exactly how to do the annotated bibliographies. All right, so I'm not going to cover all that. I'm just, because I already did. But I'm just reminding you that all this is there. All right, and the whole deal with those annotated bibliographies, again, is that there's a fairly light workload in this class in terms of the number of assignments I'm asking you to do, the number of readings we're doing, that kind of stuff. Readings, let me write that down because we need to talk about that in a second. With the intention that you guys are cooking up your own projects on some element of medieval history, and you guys are going to be working on that, and that I can expect to see work on that as we go through the rest of the semester. And so double check week 15 if you need to. The formal essay, just kind of an outline. But the big thing that's going on with that is you're going to have a book analysis on one of the books you plan to utilize for that formal essay due about the time we finish with the Hansen book. And that gets me to my next topic of conversation. How to do the book analysis in the sense of what's going on our discussion boards. I'm pretty happy with what's going on in the discussion boards in general, with a couple of twists. And I'll give you my couple of twists. Number one, I haven't gotten crazy about the grading on that stuff. You know, in general, we're looking at, a 10-point grading scale. 8.5 is just fine. It means you did more or less what I asked you to do, and it looks pretty good. 7, you did exactly what I asked you to do. 10s are, full credit. But here's the thing. Your mission is to convince me that you've read and that you've been engaged in the class. And it is easier to do that with a couple of additional postings. It is not required, but if you're getting feedback in your postings that say something to the effect of more detail would be appreciated, that's the deal. Let me go over the format here for just a second. Just as a quick reminder, I've already done this, but this format at the bottom of the discussion posts, the guide for writing reviews, right? This is going to be the same kind of guidelines that I use for your book analyses, and we're just practicing those. So we've got it busted up into like 5 sections or whatever. The first section, the author's purpose, pretty good. You know, Barbara, and April do a pretty good job getting into the author's purpose here. This seems about right to me. In terms of sources, same kind of thing. Not bad. Maybe there's a little bit more, because I think a lot of times in these chapters, really what we're looking at are the kinds of sources that people are using and how we know this stuff. But this is pretty good considering there's only something like 6 of you required to participate in this. Here we get into the breakdown of the chapter in terms of what's going on. Tyler's got something nice and long. Cade has a little bit of follow-up. Seems like there could be a little bit more here. All right, not necessarily from Tyler. You guys get the idea. And then when we get to the fitting the selection in with other course materials, you know, this is a spot not only to fit it in with the other chapters from the book, but you guys had some required videos you were supposed to be watching. I am trying to avoid the necessity of just giving you an assignment for each thing so that we make sure that we're always watching the videos and all that kind of stuff. This is where that discussion should be. All right, so let's keep it streamlined if we can. And then, you know, final thoughts. You guys did a pretty good job with that kind of thing. Same thing, chapter 5, or actually chapter 4. Okay, let's just do a quick walk through it just so that we kind of all are on the same page. Again, author's purpose. You guys did a pretty good job getting into the author's purpose right away. Nice work. Getting into the sources. Could have been maybe a little bit more, but pretty good. Using this Rust documentation, kind of like the Rust documentation that was assigned as part of the modules for you guys to look at, right? It seems like it would have been interesting to bring some of that up in the process. Maybe that comes a little bit later in the other sources part. In this particular case, there's a lot more for the chapter breakdown. So this seems about right. Maybe it could be a little bit more detailed, but again, there's only like 5 of you, so this is all right. And then as we get into the fitting the connections in, right, there's not a whole lot here. This is where we could be working on not only incorporating the other chapters, but the other material. And just in case you have forgotten what I was talking about, let's just go to it for this chapter, right? Right here. The other material, right, for that particular chapter was looking at Ibn Fadlan's account of the Rus, going through some of this material, going through the Mayan video here. So the readings in the first video were required. Would have been cool to kind of see some of that brought up in the discussion, right? So again, what I'm attempting to do with this is to streamline everything into one discussion so that we can talk about how the video or how the additional readings help us connect stuff into the chapter, as opposed to having to have a whole bunch of separate discussions on this was the chapter, this was the video, these were these other readings. Maybe there's other ways for me to do this. Maybe I should be dividing the class in half, and half of you talking about the book and the other half bringing the other materials in. I don't know. Trying to keep all our workloads manageable at this point, under the assumption that we are working on our annotated bibliographies. The first thing you need to do with the annotated bibliographies, or one of the first things you need to do with the annotated bibliographies, is start identifying a good book, a good historical book that is going to be the subject of your first book analysis. Now let's talk about that for just a second. I did this in the video, setting up the week, but as long as we're reviewing here, it's not going to hurt us to hear it twice, and I'm going to try to move through things at the same time. For these initial book reviews, and I'll have to look to see exactly when they're due. I think we're looking at probably 2 weeks from now. Maybe it's 3 weeks from now. I'll look. But these initial book reviews, these books, it's important that you pick the right book. These book analyses that you are doing for the discussions, that format, you want one that's going to work for that format. So you need a secondary source. Some of you guys have proposed primary sources to me. Primary sources are cool. They're fun. They are the building blocks of historical material. They're going to be an issue with this particular project. So you're looking for secondary sources written by a historian. Check out your author's background. All right. Run it by me. Let's make sure you get a book that's doable and something that you enjoy reading. Okay. And this is really more like an announcements thing that you might see at the beginning of a class. Let's talk about a couple other announcements. All right. The way that the syllabus is lined up, let's go through a couple of dates here. So you're looking at your first book analysis March 9th, right? And then we're getting into the Middle Ages book. I need some feedback from you guys. I need you to, I don't know how to do a poll. If there's a way to do a poll on Canvas, I would love for someone to show me, let me know how. But I need you to, while you're watching this video, click on your inbox right now and send me a message that says, yes, I have this book, or no, I do not. The Middle Ages, A Graphic History by Eleanor Janiga. I was looking at it the other day. When I taught this class 2 years ago, that book was like $15. I'm looking, it's still $15 if you get it on Kindle, or if you have been able to find it used. But I've seen some things with that book like $50. It is not a $50 book. Right now, send me something through the inbox. Let me know whether you have the book or not. It's a cool book. It's a great book. If we don't all have it, I'm going to have to come up with something else, and I'd like to start doing that now. By the way, if you don't know, you don't have any idea what kind of books you might want to do an analysis on for this class, all these books listed here are pretty good. This is stuff I've used at various points in time in this class. Jerry Bentley's book looks at a lot of religious conversions. Why different people would convert to religious is pretty interesting. Sally Hovey Wiggins looks at a monk who travels across the Silk Road. Super cool stuff. Should probably have the book Monkey in here. It is more of a folk tale. I don't know that it's an awesome book for a first book analysis. It'd be a good one for a second book analysis. I love that book. All of these daily lives in medieval times, and these are like 3 or 4 different books, but almost anything by Francis Guise and Joseph Guise. On the one hand, it's a little dated, and on the other hand, they kind of put this stuff on the map. If you're into Mongols, Morris Wasabi. Same thing with Jack Weatherford's book on Genghis Khan. I don't know that I'm going to suggest this book. It is a really awesome book if you're into it, and otherwise we can find ways to do something else. This is an awesome second book. I've used this book in the past. I kind of regret not using it this semester. The Chinese Bell Murders is a murder mystery set in China, in Tang, China. It is a different kind of writing style. I definitely am going to regret not assigning this if the Eleanor Yaniga book falls through. Boo. But that's the way these things go, huh? And there's a whole series of Judge D murder mysteries that are pretty cool. Again, probably not great for your first book analysis. You're going to struggle to find sources. You're not going to find sources. But in terms of a portrayal of what a medieval Chinese city's like, you're going to find a hard time finding something better than this. So that stuff's pretty cool. Be good for a second book analysis, or be like a good book to include for a further project. Okay, what else do I have here? Middle Ages, discussion boards, updates. Yeah, so I think that's all the updates I have for you guys. I know this has been a little bit discombobulated, but that's just the way it is here when we're trying to do this. Like I've said, I've taught this course several times before. I have not taught it online before, and trying to judge what's working and what's not working without having you guys in front of me. It's a little bit of a trick. So I figure that the first time you do this, the person in charge is likely to make an error, right? And the error is going to either be you gave them too much or you didn't give them enough. So I leaned into the let's try not to give you too much, with the idea that you're supposed to be doing stuff on your own for these annotated bibliographies, for your own research project. You're supposed to be reading about stuff. All right. Oh yeah, one more thing before we go any further, and we're not going much further. Remember way back when I shot the initial video for this, and we talked about having, everybody's name listed for the notes by peers. I appreciate April, I think it was, who got hers up. Maybe Barbara got hers up, I'm not sure. However, the rest of y'all, notes. And I know the notes are weird. So if you don't exactly know what to do with your notes for this class, just type up some kind of what we did in this class this week, right? Some kind of one-page reflection. This is what I've been working on. That way everyone kind of gets an idea about where everybody else is in the class. It's just one more form of communication. All right, speaking of communication, you guys feel free to hit me up on the virtual office hours whenever you feel like you need to. Message through the inbox. We can set something up that's mutually convenient. Other than that, if I don't hear from you, I assume all is going well. Good luck and enjoy your historical studies.